Hi and welcome to PKMB.
Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking to you about what we discussed in church, and I think it's an interesting one. Bethany didn't quite make it into church today, as she doesn't often, because she's in kids ministry and with our kids and all sorts of things. And if you are a young family, you kind of know what that feels like.
Yeah, it was fun, but I think it's important to keep going.
When she said it was fun, what she actually means is it was a terrible morning. It was really tough with our kids, but we have those days. Okay.
We do have those days. Important to keep going to church. Be in that environment. Let the kids know it's important and it's a priority in your lives, even if it's a horrible morning.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
All right. So before we lose everyone,
that's not what we were going to.
Yeah.
Money in church.
That's right. Because you weren't there, I better start this one. Okay, so what we talked about today was, isn't the church just after money? Oh, that was so when I said that to our church, I asked, hey, have you heard this sort of sentiment? And without fail, pretty much everyone was nodding and saying, yep. We've all heard that before. The church is after money and so on. So I went through this and I asked this question: what proof is there? Has the church been historically after your money? And what do you think, Bethany, is the church? Are we prying on people as pastors trying to get their money?
Oh, we certainly are. No. But I can understand how people would have that perception.
Because they have that perception, and then they walk into church, to our church this Sunday morning, and today one of our leaders, Julian, took the tithing message. And so they keep, of course, this church, like every other church, is after money.
Because it is a part of it's a part of church. It's a part of, I think it's a part of our service. It's a part of what we do.
It's part of worship.
It is. It's a part of worship. But I think if you don't understand church itself, you don't understand the message and the singing and why do we sing? Like that's another. Why do we sing? Why do we give money? What are we giving money to?
Yeah.
So I think once you understand all that, then you have that context, that frame of reference. But if not, you're just like, okay, we go to church, we sing, and then we have a message, and they have this bit in the middle where they send the buckets round and.
Yeah. Well, we don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore
because of COVID. But okay, so here's. But by the end of this video, I'm going to be talking about the historical reason that people think that church is after money, the historical reasons that the church is not after money, and how that applies to our church. Okay, so we're gonna cover that. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
All right. So the fact is that there has been in the past people who were after that used, as the Apostle Paul put it, they used godliness as a means to financial gain. So there were priests, there were bishops, there were clergy in general that actually used to use churches to make themselves rich. Like 500 years ago, they were selling indulgences. I'm not going to go into all of that, but the church selling forgiveness, and it's a bit more intricate than that.
So it starts way back in Bible time.
Well, yeah, in Paul's time, there were people that were trying to make money off Christianity.
Okay.
So and Paul addresses that in Timothy chapter 6, and I think it's verse 3 to 5 that I read this morning, where he talks about, be careful of this false teachers that are after financial gain through godliness, right? Okay. So that's been there. There's no doubt. Okay, and so even now, perhaps people can look at certain leaders almost fleecing the flock, for lack of a better term, taking their money for all sorts of promises and stuff like that, and then they look at the church and say the church is just after money. So I challenge the people and go, okay, well, firstly, do you think our church is after money? And I'm not going to go into all that aspect of it, but I talked about the transparency that we have in our church, and then I also talked about the accountability. But I want to go historically and talk about the clergy, the priests and the bishops throughout time, and how were they all just money greedy people, and the church is so corrupt, it's just all about money. And I think when you look at it historically, no. The Apostle Paul, he gave up everything that he had, and he had a lot. He was rich, he was well educated, he had great status, all of that, and he said, I count it all rubbish, right? And since then, for the most part, the church lived like that. They were the center of charity. They were, I give one example. Have you heard of basil?
Like the book or the food?
The herb? No. The person.
The person, Basil.
Basil.
No.
He was
There's a whole series of books written about Basil, but no.
Not that Basil.
one
No. He lived in
I don't know Basil.
No, Basil. He's now canonized as a saint, but
Right, okay.
Basil of Caesarea. He actually set up the first hospital.
Wow.
Okay, so you can thank Basil for Medicare. True story, right? Basil, right? He set up the first hospital. Before this bishop, there was no such thing as hospitals, and then there were copycats all throughout history. Where and now obviously we have our healthcare system where we believe everyone should have healthcare, right? And that's thanks to people, thanks to the church.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this morning,
a lot of the hospitals in Brisbane are set up by churches as well. So
yeah.
yeah.
Like all hospitals, the idea that people should be cared for in their weakest state when they don't have any money comes from the Christian perspective, right? It really does in our Western world. And so you see this all throughout history. You see clergy setting up hospitals. There was another guy we talked about. I can't remember his name. It's very hard to pronounce, but he's a saint that lived in the 600s, and he was a goldsmith, very rich, became a bishop, giving his wealth away. He used to buy slaves back from their masters, set them free, and then through his own influence, he set up monasteries. And one of the things he did was he would take the bodies of executed people and give them a decent burial. So all this sort of stuff, this is how the church operated. It was the center of charity throughout history, right? There was no welfare. There was no people, people were just left to die, literally, on the road, because there was no, and the Christians would take care of them. And so you see this all throughout history, and these are echoes of our leader, Jesus Christ. But throughout history, you still got these people that would pop up and use the church for financial gain. So you have almost them like living side by side. And so, people come to church and they'd be like, the church is after my money. They're not 100% wrong. That has happened. I think a better question is the church you are a part of, is this church after our money? Or are they echoing the heartbeat of Christ? So that was my challenge to people. I go, hey, let's not use it as a scapegoat statement, if you like. I'm not going to give because the church is after my money and all that. That might be true, but you got to ask yourself is, hey, why are you part of that church if you think they're only after your money anyway? But if you really do believe the church is echoing the heartbeat of Jesus Christ, then maybe, just maybe you got some attachment to money that you shouldn't have, as we all do, kind of a little bit. So that was my point. It was pretty
interesting you say that. I think the whole concept of giving money in church, and as I said, I wasn't there, so I don't know what you're saying, but it has nothing to do with the church that you're going to in particular. Is this church after my money or not, as to whether I'm going to give or not. I think it's if you are a Christian and you're a follower of Christ, that's part of your, as you said, part of your worship. So wherever you're going, you give a certain amount back to God, because
but I think that people want to know as well that it's being used properly.
For sure, yeah.
And and I guess my point. Look, I wanted to challenge people who have that mentality, as I'm sure they'll exist in our church as they exist everywhere else, that hey, I don't have to give because, well, the church is after my money, and I talked about tithing and things like that, and we can probably do another video on that. But this is what I did this morning, right? I had a fictitious friend named Adam. Okay, I said Adam comes to church and he doesn't like the fact that the church is after his money, right? And he gets there and he hears Julian talk about tithing. He's like, haha, I knew it. They're just after my money. And I was using him as a bit of an example, and I said, hey, Adam now knows we're transparent. We have accountability. He looks at history and go, okay, the church is not after money, and this church is not after money. And Adam is still not willing to part with his hard-earned is there really a problem with the church, or is there something up with Adam's heart? And this is a challenge that I was laying down to people, including myself. We're all a little bit like Adam. It doesn't matter if you're tithe or don't. Like, we all really do like to care about ourselves more so than others. And the whole message of Christ is, the visionary message is to take care of community. Yeah. So that's a little bit about, if church is after your money. I would say there has been cases in history where the church is after your money. I think a better question is the church that you are connected to after your money? And if not, let's just not use that as an excuse. Let's go, hey, God, what do you call me to give? What are you calling me to?
What's the other side of that? If the church isn't after your money, then I think, as you said, it's important for the church to be accountable, to share the vision of, you know, this is where, when you do give, this is our heart, this is what we're wanting to do in the community, this is what we're wanting to do to build our church, this is what you're giving to. And if you're part of this church, then, you know, we encourage you to get on board, and because there is that blessing when you give as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesus' words, given or will be given unto you.
Exactly, yeah.
Pressed down, shaken together.
Yeah, for sure. So there is, I mean, aside, if the church is not after your money, I think it's important to look at, you know, what is it with, you know, obviously we do give in church and that's part of it. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Be blessed, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time. If you are enjoying our content, just make sure you give us a thumbs up. We'd love you to comment. Just let us know you've watched it, and subscribe as well.